The healing of the leper in Galilee, Matthew 8, 1 through 4, Mark 1:40 through 45, Luke 5, 12 to 16. A leper, covered in sores, wanders the outskirts of a small Galilean village, avoiding people. Shunned by society, he lives in isolation, longing to be healed. Jesus, surrounded by a crowd of followers, enters the village. His presence brings excitement. People are eager to hear his teachings and witness miracles. Ignoring the risks, the leper falls to his knees before Jesus, pleading, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." The crowd gasps. No one dares to approach a leper. Jesus reaches out his hand and touches the leper, an act unthinkable to the crowd. He says gently, "I am willing. Be clean." Instantly, the leprosy vanishes, and the man's skin is restored. The people watch in awe, whispering among themselves, "No one has ever seen such power and compassion, a miracle before their eyes." Jesus tells the healed man, "Do not tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the sacrifice Moses commanded." This is to fulfill Jewish law and prove his cleansing. Overcome with joy, the man runs toward the temple to see the priests, barely able to contain his excitement. Despite Jesus' warning, the man cannot keep silent. He tells everyone about his healing, and soon crowds flock to find Jesus. With the increasing crowds, Jesus often withdraws to lonely places to pray, seeking time with the Father before continuing his ministry. The once outcast leper is restored to society, his life forever changed. Through this miracle, Jesus reveals his divine power and deep compassion, bringing hope to all who suffer. The healing of the paralyzed man in Galilee, Mark 2, 1-12, Matthew 9, 1-8, Luke 5, 17 to 26. Jesus is teaching in a house packed with people in Capernaum. Pharisees, scribes, and villagers squeeze inside, eager to hear his words. The doorway is blocked. No one can get in. Outside, 4 men carry their paralyzed friend on a mat. They long to bring him to Jesus, believing in his power to heal. But the crowd is too dense, making it impossible to enter. Determined, the men climb onto the roof of the house. They tear open a section of the roof and lower their friend down using ropes, right in front of Jesus. The crowd gasps in amazement. Jesus looks up at the friends and smiles, seeing their deep faith. He then turns to the paralyzed man and says, "Son, your sins are forgiven." The religious leaders mutter among themselves, thinking, "Who is this man to forgive sins? Only God can do that." Knowing their thoughts, Jesus says, "Which is easier, to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up and walk'?" The room falls silent. Jesus then commands, "Rise, take up your mat, and walk." Instantly, the man's legs strengthen. He stands for the first time in years. The crowd erupts in amazement as the man picks up his mat and walks out, completely healed. His friends rejoice, and the crowd praises God. Some Pharisees remain skeptical, but others stand in awe, unable to deny the power they have witnessed. The once paralyzed man walks home with joy, his faith forever changed. The people marvel, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." The healing at the pool of Bethesda, John 5, 1-15. In Jerusalem, near the Sheep Gate, lies the pool of Bethesda, a place where the sick, blind, and paralyzed gather, waiting for the water to be stirred. It is believed that an angel occasionally stirs the water, and the first person to enter after the stirring is healed. Among the suffering people, a crippled man has been lying there for 38 years, unable to move fast enough to reach the waters in time. He watches helplessly as others go before him whenever the water is stirred. One day, Jesus arrives at the pool, walking among the sick. He notices the man, knowing he has suffered for a long time. Jesus asks, "Do you want to be healed?" The man, looking tired and hopeless, replies, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. Others always get there before me." Jesus looks at him with compassion and says, "Rise, take up your mat, and walk." His words carry divine power, and the man's body is instantly healed. The man feels strength returning to his legs. He stands for the first time in 38 years, picks up his mat, and walks, filled with shock and joy. As the man walks through the city, Jewish leaders, Pharisees, stop him and say, "It is the Sabbath. It is unlawful for you to carry your mat." They ignore the miracle and focus on their rules. The man replies, "The one who healed me told me to pick up my mat and walk." The Pharisees demand, "Who was this man?" But he does not know. Jesus has already disappeared into the crowd. Later, Jesus finds him in the temple and says, "See, you are well now. Sin no more, so that nothing worse may happen to you." The man realizes who Jesus is. Overjoyed, the man returns to the Pharisees and tells them, "It was Jesus who healed me." The leaders are angered, as this fuels their growing opposition to Jesus. But the man's life is forever changed, and he walks away, praising God. The healing of the man with the withered hand. Matthew 12, 9-14, Mark 3, 1-6, Luke 6, 6-11. On the Sabbath day, Jesus enters a Jewish synagogue where many people are gathered for worship. Among them is a man with a withered, paralyzed hand. The Pharisees are also present, watching Jesus closely, hoping to find a reason to accuse him. The Pharisees whisper among themselves, plotting against Jesus. They ask him, "Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath?" hoping he will break their strict rules. The crowd watches in silence, waiting for Jesus' response. Jesus, knowing their hard hearts, responds, "If one of you has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not lift it out? How much more valuable is a man than a sheep?" His words silence the crowd, but the Pharisees remain stubborn. Jesus turns to the man with the withered hand and tells him, "Stand here in front of everyone." The man hesitates, but with hope in his eyes, he steps forward, standing before Jesus. With gentle authority, Jesus looks at the man and says, "Stretch out your hand." The man, though his hand has been useless for years, slowly begins to move it. Before everyone's eyes, his withered hand is fully restored, strong and healthy. The crowd gasps in amazement, while some rejoice, praising God for the miracle. Instead of celebrating, the Pharisees become enraged. They leave the synagogue and immediately begin plotting how to destroy Jesus, refusing to accept his authority. Jesus, knowing their intentions, leaves the synagogue, continuing his mission of healing and preaching. The man who was healed, now full of gratitude and joy, watches as Jesus departs, forever changed.